What's going on, guys? It's Cal. I am joined with Jaden today. This is episode 3 of Buffalo TalkCenter. Jaden, how we doing today? And I think first things first, we got to talk about the NBA Finals. It was a blowout game last night. I think a little bit of a taste of reality, right?
Yeah, I'm doing good. The NBA Finals, not terribly interested in them this year, but yeah, a little bit of a
Yeah.
blowout last night. Pacers, they've been making some crazy comebacks, but last night, the Thunder just right off the rip, they just took a big lead and they never gave it back up.
Yeah, Shea getting 34 points. Again, Williams 19 has really been the catalyst for them this year. You look at Indiana and again, solid across the board, but nobody had that big game. So I think that's kind of what we'll see the rest of the series. Again, I know you're riding with OKC as well. I think all of us, part of Buffalo Sports Center, believe in OKC. Let's switch over to Buffalo sports for a little bit. We'll get our Buffalo sports stuff out of the way. I know a lot of people watching this are Buffalo sports fans, so let's get it out of the way in the beginning. I know you had some news about Alex Tuch. Let's hear about that.
Yeah, so apparently the Sabres they met with Alex Tuch's camp at the NHL Combine last week. So Tuch, his contract's coming up here shortly. I believe I think he has 1 year left.
Hmm.
So he's coming up on needing a new contract. Sabres could try to hammer that out. Tuch, he's getting a little bit older. He's gonna want big money, but I mean, it's good to see that they want him back. They want to, hammer out a new contract with him, but the details will be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Because Tuck's one of those guys that we got him with the Eichel trade, and we didn't expect as much production that we've got, right? I mean, like he was definitely a positive surprise. Again, hometown boy from Syracuse, so we knew the vibes were going to be high, but the production has been much higher than any of us have anticipated. And again, he was listed as one of those guys who was pretty pissed off with the organization. So we'll see how that meeting goes, and maybe again he could put some more pressure on Kevin Adams, who seems to just have this job locked in. Again, we'll see what happens during the season. But do you think Tuck's going to continue to hammer out that the Sabres need to get some more talent on this roster during this meeting?
Oh, 100%. I mean, he's coming up here like 30 years old, so
Yeah.
I mean, even being from Syracuse, I mean, he's getting up there in age. He hasn't been to the playoffs since he's been here, and he came from Vegas, who's just in the playoffs every year, so I think he's really going to be, trying to see what Kevin Adams is doing this offseason. Are they actually going to be serious? Is the team actually going to make a push for the playoffs, or should he just, head out and go to a better team?
Yeah, because I mean, like if you're Alex Tuck, I mean, like you said, hometown boy, you have the feels, but throw that out the window. If Kevin Adams looks you dead in the eyes and says, "Look, I'm not adding anyone," which let's be honest, no one would be surprised by that. I'm out of there, right? Why would you sign a long-term deal to end your career with the team, even if you were a fan of them as a 10-year-old? Who cares, right? Your prime is a matter of 5 to 10 years in the league. Why waste that with a team that has zero plans of winning the championship? And again, I say that about pretty much any sport, right? Why own a team if you're not going for the championship every year? Terry Pagula just seems to be doing the same thing with the Sabres team. It is an absolute mess. Let's stick with hockey. We could talk about the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. This year, again, much like the NBA, I'm not ultra interested in it, but at least there's a little bit of a feud going on, right? These games have been chippy. There's definitely no love lost from last year. Again, a rematch between these two teams. I'd love to know your opinions. Who do you have winning the series? I know me and Donald discussed it last podcast.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, another championship series here that I'm not too terribly, intrigued by, but I got Florida winning it. I think they're a little grittier, they're a little deeper than Edmonton. I think they might not have, the top end talent like a McDavid or a Draisaitl, but I mean they just have guys all over, Marchand, Kachuk, Ekblad, Bobrovsky solid in net. They just up and down the roster, they just have the perfect players. So I think Edmonton's gonna struggle to really, keep up with the depth that they have up and down their lineup.
Yeah, I'm completely on board. I know Don picked the Oilers, which I was a little surprised about, but I could see the pick. Again, McDavid, Draisaitl, it's tough to beat that top line. But then you get deeper into that Oilers lineup, and it really struggles towards that third and fourth line. We saw Corey Perry hit a miracle goal at the end of last game. It took 2 overtimes, but Florida somehow held on. Like you said, Marchand's been a huge positive for the Panthers. Someone who I didn't think had that much left in the tank when he got traded over there, and he's just been a godsend for them. So, fun to see there. Again, as a Sabres fan, I can't say I really have a horse in the race. You get these Sabres fans, oh, but Florida is a rival. But they're not a rival. I mean, sure, Matthew Tkachuk, pushes Dahlin around once in a while. Dahlin shoves him around. Who cares, right? The Sabres team, until they make the playoffs, a rivalry is non-existent. You can't even call the Toronto Maple Leafs a rivalry at this point until we consistently make the playoffs and, start to build some of these feuds back up again. I mean, wouldn't you agree? Like, if you ask a Bruins fan, a Maple Leafs fan, they don't see the Sabres as a rival at all. It's all just made up because, we want to have a little fun in the offseason or in the season, but we're living in the mid-2000s. We're living in the 1990s. These are not rivalries, right?
Oh, 100%. I mean,
Yeah,
even with Florida in recent years, I mean, they've just been, it seems like every time that, the Sabres kind of, they get something going and then Florida comes into town and they just, hammer us out and we're just, they just kill
yeah.
us.
And the NHL, the way they schedule games too really torques me off because it used to be so fun where you'd play your division teams so many more times than they do now. Now you got to play every team at least twice, and like it's just not as fun, right? All of these rivalries across the league, and again, this is a problem for the last I don't know 5-6 years. This isn't anything new, but the rivalries have kind of disappeared in the game of hockey. And that's why these playoff series are so special nowadays because you do play the same team over and over and over again. And hockey is one of those sports where the physicality just builds game after game after game. And that's what we're seeing in this Oilers-Panthers series. Again, like you mentioned, the Panthers, definitely the more aggressive team. But the Oilers, I think they were the more aggressive team in game one. And I think that's part of the reason why they were able to come back in that game and win. Again, it's just – will we see the Sabres get on a level of the Florida Panthers? It's hard to say yes. I really have just lost faith in this upper management in this organization. But, they have made a couple hires. I'd love to get your opinions on that. I know me and Don talked about that last week. The Sabres still haven't signed anyone player-wise. And again, the season's still going on. So after the Cup, we'll see some more moves. But do you think the new names in the upper management will help maybe force Kevin Adams' hand a little bit? Do you think they'll go after some guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Eric Stahl signing is just kind of whatever,
Yeah.
maybe he can, maybe in free agency, he can kind of help you, convince some guys to come here, whatever. He doesn't have a ton of experience as an executive, but I think with Jarmo Kekalainen, I think that is a great pickup for the Sabres. I really thought that that position was going to be a tough sell for anybody. So I mean, to get a guy who was a GM just a couple of years ago, I think that's it's a big move. He's had a history of making some decent moves with Columbus and then some other spots. So I think that'll be a good move for the Sabres. I think that's a little more of a respected guy in the front office than Kevin Adams. My biggest complaint at this point is going to be we're going to keep coming back to it. The assistant coaches, no changes there.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment, right? This group of assistant coaches, and again, I say this from a standpoint where I could not coach an NHL team, obviously, so it doesn't mean too much what I have to say. But this group is just so unrespected, so ill-equipped for this job. They have zero accolades, zero experience. It's just a complete noob set of coaches. Now we have heard that maybe the Amherst coach could be going to Pittsburgh. That there could be some shakeup there. But how do you keep the same group of assistant coaches? Again, the Sabres power play for 3 years in a row now has just been a mockery. They do the drop pass. They have nobody on there with confidence with the puck. They don't cycle the puck. They hold it. It's a negative. It's a net negative every time they get a power play. The penalty kill, it's up and down, right? Greenway got hurt last year, and then it kind of went downhill. It started off good. It's just a joke. I think the Sabres team, we have to see something big. And until we see something big, I don't think any of us are going to have that much belief. Mitch Marner's a name that's been thrown out there, but there has been a rumor today that the Ducks are going to be the leading candidate. Could you imagine Mitch Marner going to the Ducks? I mean, what a nothing burger move, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Ducks have been they've been pretty irrelevant here for a few years, but I mean, who am I to say that as a Sabres fan?
Yeah.
But they've been making some moves. I mean, last year they went out, got Radko Gudas from Florida coming off of a cup, gave him big money, made him the captain. So I mean, there's some things happening in Anaheim, but I mean, I thought Marner would want to stay closer to home. So if that does end up happening, I mean, it's an interesting move.
Yeah, it definitely is. Again, Elias Pettersson and Jason Robertson, also names that if the Sabres get one of these three guys, all of a sudden everyone's back invested. This is big. Um, and the forwards that's not the main problem with this team, but it seems like the easiest acquisition, right? You could get a big name forward. If you get a big name defender or goalie, that doesn't really jump the gun as much as those positions are needed with the Sabres. We'll come back to hockey maybe later on. Let's switch over to football. Jaire Alexander released today from the Green Bay Packers. There has been some rumors that the Bills talked about a trade for him in the offseason. Do you think he could end up coming to the Bills? I know there's a lot of teams that would want him, like, again, a former all-pro guy.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting possibility. I think those trade talks probably happened before the draft, if I had to guess, before the Bills spent a first round pick, of course, on Maxwell
Yeah.
Hairston. But it'd be interesting. I don't know if the Bills have the money for it at this point. I also think Jair is a bit of an interesting locker room figure. I
He's
know a
got a
couple
big
years.
personality.
Yeah, for lack of a better phrase there. I know a couple years ago he had that feud with Diggs going into our Sunday night game, but of course, Diggs isn't here anymore, so I mean maybe he could fit in.
Yeah, we got to bring up the Mac Hollins Facebook post too, because again, this is a continued trend that just happens every day. You see it happen. Somebody puts some fake, non-sensual post on Facebook, and everybody over the age of 50 falls for it. Some people again, I get some of these things that people fall for, but the quote, let me find it real quick, but it it's one of again, people are calling the WGR, complaining about it. It's one of those things where you really just can't. Again, if you're a football fan, you just cannot fall for it. You cannot fall for it, but people continue to fall for it. What do you think of these sort of things?
Oh, it's
Well, how do we fact check this stuff so this doesn't get out on mainstream media?
I mean it's the Wild West over there on Facebook. I think it's a symptom of a social media platform that has definitely turned towards the older generation. It's tough. I mean some of these pages aren't even I mean it's not real people even running it. It's just like AI generated stuff.
Uh,
It's a tough sell over there, I think Facebook, Twitter, all of them are just going to have to really step up their game in terms of, moderation, and people are going to have to just learn to kind of sift through it and, you know, see what is obviously not real.
Yeah, it was I can't find the exact quote, but it was something along the lines of Mac Hollins saying that he wishes he never left the Bills and that the Patriots have zero camaraderie with their players and just like complaining about the Patriots roster. And again, if you have any knowledge of football, you know that a guy who just signed a big term deal for Mac Hollins, the Patriots paid him big money. You're not going to say something like that before you've even had training camp. That would just be like self suicide. I don't understand how people believe these things over and over again. But again, in this day and age where the internet runs all, it is fun to see some of the things these accounts come up with and how easily people fall for things. And you see that in the political world, you see that in the sports world, you see that with anything nowadays. But it just is a reminder of how easily humans can be manipulated. And again, it makes for good entertainment. Let's stick with the Bills here. We look at their upcoming schedule, and again, there's not much to talk about until training camp starts. So we'll talk about what has been released, the schedule. What's the big 2 to 3 games that you're looking forward to this year? I know there's a lot of prime time as usual with this Josh Allen regime. There's got to be some games for you that stick out the most, though.
Yeah, I mean, off the top of my head, obviously, opening week, Sunday Night Football against Baltimore, that's going to be, I mean, probably game of the year for the Bills besides Kansas City, which is the next game that I'm going to talk about, of course.
Mm.
The Chiefs later on in the season, we play them every year. I believe they're coming to Buffalo this year.
Yeah,
So that will be something. Hopefully that will also be the case in the playoffs. And
we'll see.
yeah, we'll see. And besides those games, I mean, there's a few different ones. The Dolphins is always a fun game. The second go around against New England, you'll probably have Diggs on the field.
Mhm.
That'll be a big storyline. Uh, you never know with the Steelers. Do we play the Steelers? I might be wrong on that.
Looking here, yeah, Steelers are week 13
Okay.
in Pittsburgh. On it's a Sunday 4:30 game, so you're gonna
Okay.
have probably Jim on the call for that one, Jim and
It's
Tone.
always, that's always an added plus.
Oh yeah.
Another go around against Aaron Rodgers. I think that'll be another fun one. So there's a lot to look forward to this year on the schedule.
Yeah, and I think the one negative this year, I would call it a positive, but fans are calling it a negative. Week 17 against the Eagles, they really buried that game to a point where that game, at least for one of these teams, shouldn't mean a whole lot. Again, if you're expecting the expected, the Bills should already be pretty much in good shape in the AFC East, potentially still battling for seeding in the AFC. Whereas the Eagles, same sort of thing, right? In the NFC, should be towards the top there. That game is in Buffalo, though, so if it does mean anything, it will have home field advantage. I got to agree with you, though. Week 1 against the Ravens, that's always a fun, stressful game. And then I gotta say, the Jets games this year should be fun as well. Again, you got a hodgepodge of guys for the Jets. I'd love to get your opinion on the Jets. Do you think the Jets can finally take a step up again? They just seem to they had a good thing going, and then they got Rodgers, and that set them back another. It seems 10 years with money wise. Do you think the Jets could bounce back?
Yeah, I thought about bringing up the Jets.
Hmm.
It's tough to say. They feel like one of those franchises at this point where kind of like the Sabres, anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah.
I like the Aaron Glenn hiring head coach, from Detroit. He's got a track record of success. He's a
Hmm.
strong culture guy there, and brought in Justin Fields at quarterback. That's always fun. But I mean, they still have Garrett Wilson. They lost Devontae Adams. They're probably, I'd say they're probably the worst team in the division at the moment. But
Yeah.
I think if they don't do anything stupid, which is, it's hard to say, but in terms of roster moves here moving forward, I think they could be on a good trajectory. But I think this year it's mostly just going to be kind of, just set the foundation year, just let Justin Fields go out there, see what he's got, which is always fun to watch. But I don't think they'll be too much of a threat this year in terms of, taking down anyone else in the division, but they might be fun to watch.
Yeah, and again, it just seems like they threw their young core out last year, and it was a core that a lot of people thought could sneak into a wild card spot, and they just decided not to do that. Let's switch over to baseball. I know me and you both Mets fans. 4.5 game lead in the NL East, absolutely smoking the Rockies this weekend. And the big thing I want to bring up, well, shout out to the Cubs, shout out to the Tigers. I'm not too, not too big of a fan of either of those teams, but I will say both teams absolutely tearing it up. We got to bring up the Pirates, though. The Pirates. Let's look at this schedule here. So they go in to face the Phillies, and it's a home series for the Pirates. The Phillies, they need these games, right? They're falling quickly to the Mets. First game, the Pirates win 5-4. Second game, Pirates win 2-1. Third game, Pirates win 2-1. The Phillies have scored 6 runs in 3 games, and 2 of those only 1 run apiece. I mean, if you're a Phillies fan, it seems like the sky is falling right now. The Pirates are one of the biggest embarrassments in the MLB year after year after year. They don't spend money. Their pitching has actually been good, but they don't score runs either. How the heck do you lose? Again, it's still early in the season, but this is a crucial, pivotal time when you know the Mets are going to take games from the Rockies. If you're a Phillies fan, what are you thinking right now?
I mean, we know how Philadelphia sports fans are. They are obviously, they are in shambles at the moment. The sky is falling over there. I mean, it's a long season. You're only, not even halfway, but we've seen the Mets. They build leads and then blow them later in the season. So you never know what could happen. But at the moment, as a Phillies fan, there'd be a little bit of panic for me. I think their pitching has been a little bit questionable at times. I know their bullpen has had some issues. They've had some starters kind of start to falter here. And, on top of that, like you just said, against the Pirates, they weren't scoring runs either. So
Yeah.
you just got to hope that it's a bit of a slump and that they'll get to a softer part in their schedule. Not that the Pirates aren't, but they'll
Yeah.
get some easy teams to kind of get the bats going, kind of get their pitching figured out. But I mean, right now, I would not be feeling good as a Phillies fan.
Yeah, definitely not. And we bring up baseball because baseball is going to be the only thing on for a while once these other sports end. One sport that's wrapping up next weekend, the UFL. Again, a thrilling weekend of semifinals. There are two blowout games. So we have a championship game. I know I personally will not be watching. Are you gonna tune in next Saturday night, prime time, 8 o'clock for the UFL championship?
I mean, without looking at the schedule of what else is going to be on that night, I
Completely.
might tune in for a little bit of it. I watched maybe a grand total of like 5 minutes this weekend
Uh,
between the two championship games. Neither one was particularly competitive, which didn't really help their case. But I like DC. When the league first started up, that was kind of the team that I kind of had some affinity for, kind of would watch their games here and there. So it's nice to see them in the championship against Michigan. Michigan's kind of a fun team as well. The
yeah.
game is in St. Louis, which probably will not help their case because,
No.
like we saw last year, that fan base does not really care to show up if the Battlehawks are not playing. So,
Which is fair enough. I mean, if there's a
yeah.
UFL championship in Buffalo, I certainly wouldn't be there,
So it's going to be a tough sell for them, but they'll probably be 15 plus thousand fans there, so maybe it'll work out for them.
Yeah, credit to DC too. One of the few teams that actually puts fans in the stands. The beer snake kind of,
Oh yeah.
that was the big calling for the UFL. I mean, or the XFL in the beginning too. And we look at next Saturday, and we got the Mets on at 4. So technically, Game 5 Stanley Cup at 8. So might have to tune in for a little bit. I know there's a Kamaru Usman fight in the UFC. Speaking of the UFC. Sugar Sean O'Malley down again, back-to-back fights. He does the same thing. He has he struggles on the ground game and just could not land any crucial shots. That fight was over due to a choke. TKO though, WWE. I know that's more your style here. We had Money in the Bank. And some interesting results that happened at Money in the Bank. R-Truth, or Ron Killings, now comes back, screws over John Cena. Looks like they finally listen to the fans there. Seth Rollins wins the men's Money in the Bank. Naomi wins the women's Money in the Bank. Big Monday Night Raw tonight. Again, by the time anyone's listening to this, it will be the next day. So let's do predictions now. Do we think we see a cash in tonight on Raw?
I mean, it's certainly possible, Seth Rollins' new faction, they've been looking like $1 million. They've been just taking everybody out. Obviously we have Jay versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship tonight. So it's a prime spot for it. And Seth Rollins, with that faction that he has, he can really cash in whenever he wants. He's got the artillery to kind of just take everybody out, but I'm gonna say I feel like they've really been just blowing the Money in the Bank briefcase just right off the rip the last few years. So I'm gonna say that they hold off on it for now.
Yeah, I think you have to, right? Now, I'm seeing a lot of people saying, oh, Seth Rollins is going to cash in and Roman's going to cost him. And that would be just like a repeat of last year where it's a failed cash in right off the bat. You cannot do that. And if you were going to do that, you should have just had Roman return at Money in the Bank and had LA Knight win the briefcase if you really wanted to get that storyline going. Again, we'll see what they do. I want to touch on music a little bit. I know Lil Wayne dropped an album this week, and I don't know if you heard any of it, but there were some bars in that album that were quite funny, and a lot of people are giving this album about a 2 out of 10. The first song was solid, and I got to agree with them. It definitely fell off. Again, just the rap the whole rap genre right now is just really hurting the last couple of years.
Yeah, I did not personally listen to the new Lil Wayne album, but I saw some Twitter slash X discourse about it. I saw some Lil Wayne maybe washed allegations on there.
Yeah.
Didn't sound like people were too happy about the album.
Yeah, and I saw this on X as well, and I think we can debate this. So obviously, the iconic song "Forever" with Drake, Kanye, Lil Wayne, and Eminem. If they ran that quad back again, who would have the best verse? I mean, we could discuss this endlessly. Again, Kanye, a very controversial figure nowadays, hasn't put out a good song in a long time, right? I mean, I think we could kind of rule him off first, right? I mean, Donda, there were some okay songs on that, but like as far as a rap verse goes, I don't know if he would get the best verse again after this Lil Wayne album that just came out. I think I'd have to write him off too, which leaves us with Eminem and Drake. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
That's a tough question. I agree. I think Lil Wayne is probably out of the question. I think
Yeah,
Kanye, like you said, Donda, there were a couple songs that were decent. Donda 2 was just not good.
yeah,
So yeah, it leaves you with Drake and Eminem. I can't tell you the last time Eminem dropped a good song either.
yeah,
It's not usually really my type of music, but I think overall people kind of agree that I mean, he's an all-time great rapper, but I don't think he's dropped anything great super recently. So I think by process of elimination, it's kind of a crazy answer, but I'd have to say Drake.
yeah. I think I agree because Eminem is so hit or miss nowadays. Lil Wayne again. Lil Wayne. I mean, on features, he can really like save a song, but like as of recently, I don't know. And then Kanye, I'd be surprised if there were 4 words that he says that you could understand in this day and age. I mean, I don't know what the heck he's doing, but yeah, a very interesting question there. If you guys are still watching, leave a comment who you guys think would have the best verse. Um, and I guess now we'll switch back to Buffalo sports to kind of end this off. We'll kind of do the sandwich, start with it and end with it. I think we got to go back to the Sabres, and I think we have to give true predictions now. What do you think the Sabres do this offseason? Do they trade their first round pick? Do they trade Bowen Byram? Do they sign a big name? Let's just hear full offseason predictions in a matter of 3 or less minutes.
All right, put me on the hot seat here.
Yeah,
Without
armchair
getting
GM. Here we go.
Xbox GM,
Yeah,
without getting into super specific names or anything, I think starting with the draft, I think they will make the ninth overall pick because, I mean, trading draft picks in the NHL, it doesn't really happen that often. And when it does, it's really just usually not for players because if you're trading a good player, you probably want a good player back, not draft picks.
yeah.
So I think they will make that pick. Bowen Byram's 100% will be traded. We've heard recently that they've talked with some teams about a trade that would potentially involve like a late first round pick on top of some other things. I think that's fine if you do that. I think if you could get back a late first round pick and a player, that would be decent. And then flip that late first round pick, of course, because there's no reason to make that pick at this point.
They will. They
So,
will.
oh yeah, I'm sure Kevin Adams will say that, he tried so hard to trade it and he just couldn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Byram will be gone. I think the main focus is going to be on the defense. I think they'll probably sign a couple right-handed defensemen, a little bit older, some veterans that they can just kind of put next to Dahlin and Power and hopefully improve on defense there. Um, I think Samuelson could be gone. And besides that, I mean, I don't think it's going to be crazy. I think it's just going to be a few signings on defense and, maybe trade Byram for like a forward or something just to kind of, do something to that group. And besides that, I mean, I think that'll really be it.
Yeah, it's one of those years where again, this current Sabres core, and they all seem to have a down year last year. If this core group of players can play decent enough to get this team to the trade deadline, it's one of those years where you're like, we'll make the moves later down the line. We'll make the moves at the deadline and get in the playoffs. But Kevin Adams just does not seem to get it done at the trade deadline. And it's rare for a team to get it done, right? There's always like 2 to 3 teams that just home run it every year and just, they make 4, 3, 4, 5 moves that just completely propel their franchise forward. And then there's the teams that kind of sit there and make 1 or 2, nothing moves. And it seems like the Sabres have kind of been in talks. They're always in talks, right? Any report, the Sabres are talking. Kevin Adams is on the phone 24/7 talking to these guys. But again, he overvalues the junk on his team, and then he just doesn't pull the trigger. And hopefully there's been some pressure put on him because, again, this is the last year of his contract as GM. But again, if Terry, likes him and doesn't want to fire him, does it really matter? He'll just, oh, shucks, I, couldn't make any moves. Looks like I'm going to, move away from GM and be promoted to some higher up spot with the organization. What a shame. But again, I'd love to see this team make a statement in the offseason. And I hope that the core group of players that actually are going to stick around long term, like a Dahlin, a potential Tuch, maybe JJ Peterka uses some leverage and joins that group. Hey, if you're going to sign me long term, if they sit in there and just every day pressure, we have to get talent, we have to make the playoffs. Because again, how many guys' careers have we seen almost wasted or wasted in Buffalo? You see these guys that, again, it's redundant at this point. Look at Edmonton versus Florida in the Stanley Cup. Again, Reinhart. The list goes on and on with these guys, right? Too, right? You could list
Evan
off like
Rodriguez.
everybody. Evander Kane on the other side, Jeff Skinner on the other side. You go back to Florida. I mean, you look at some of the defensemen that are there as well. Kulikov is on that team. It's just, I mean, it seems like half of the roster in the Stanley Cup final year after year are former Sabres. And it's like, oh, shoot, well, he sucked in Buffalo, but he's good somewhere else because there's no motivation in Buffalo. It's an absolute mess from the top to the bottom. And it has been that way for 10 years. I'd love to get your side of that. I know so many people are aggravated about that. Oh, this guy was a Sabre and now he has success. Personally, I don't care about that because it is what it is, right? It's a mess here. I don't expect it to be any other way. But we see people every day just so fired up about, yeah, well, if this guy leaves, he's just going to win a cup with this team. Does it matter, though? Like,
Yeah, I think I like what one person had to say about that. It may be true that a lot of the times when the Sabres get rid of people, they end up winning cups, whatever. They turn into better players like the Evan Rodriguez's of the world.
yeah,
But I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to you have to get back something that's worthwhile for that. I mean, you look at, the Ryan O'Reilly trade, which nowadays, we all thought that we got fleeced on that trade, but we actually kind of didn't.
yeah,
Like Ryan O'Reilly went and won a cup with St. Louis, but so what? I mean, we got Tage back, and Tage is like your franchise cornerstone right now. So if it comes down to a move like that, I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It's just when you just let, like a Rodriguez go out the door, he couldn't even, get minutes with you, and then goes to a Stanley Cup team and he's like a pivotal player for them. Like that's where it's an issue.
yeah. Yeah, like the O'Reilly thing, too. Like, you see that all the time, and especially a couple years ago, where people are like, well, it doesn't matter what happens with the guys we got. O'Reilly won a cup. It doesn't matter. It's the team he went to, right? It's not just, oh, Ryan O'Reilly carried. I mean, he was a really good player and, helped them win that cup. But it doesn't matter if he goes there, or if he goes to the previous, Arizona Coyotes and, finishes last in the conference. It doesn't matter. It's what you get back that matters. And again, of course, Saboka and Berglund, two of my favorite Sabres of all time. Glad we got them along with Tage Thompson. But yeah, at the time, no one expected Tage Thompson to become the absolute stud that he is. Again, I know watching Tage Thompson when we first got him, though, you could see the potential, right? He was making those moves that only Jack Eichel on the team could make. And he has certainly followed his footsteps there. But I think that's going to be it for episode 3 of the podcast. We'll be back next week again. Weekly episodes of this podcast, a day late this week. We'll try to be a little more on time next week, but we'll see what happens. Thank you for joining, Jaden, and thank you guys for listening to this one. Have a good one, and peace out.